2018 special meeting. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second.
Comments, questions, changes, deletions, etc.? I had only one on page 2, second paragraph from the bottom, third sentence. Mr. Maynard explained that they will not be taking down trees over 8 inches. I think he did say in diameter. He did not mean in height.
Yeah.
So right. So I'm putting some words in your mouth, Rick. Other than that, I had nothing else. Anybody else?
Nothing.
Call the question.
No, excuse me, I do have one,
I thought-
fairly significant one. And that is toward the bottom. So this is the problem with this. There we go. So on page 10, this was related to the when we had executive session, and what the minutes say is that in the motion portion, seconded by the board voted unanimously accept the outlines of the terms for a purchase and sale agreement with the exception of the inspection provision, and to authorize. Well, I guess it sort of gets there. What I would say a little more, if I can open this thing, would be leaving open to the first selectman's discretion the inspection contingency. Or is that understood there with the exception?
Well,
I just don't like that word exception.
The question is, how do you remember making the motion? Because this is very specific to
Yeah.
a motion. So
Yeah.
how do you recall?
Was that word for word what I said? Oh, okay, all right. If that gets us there with authorized.
I mean, I think what was understood was that you guys were not comfortable with the inspection terms as they were presented, and that you were basically agreeing to the other terms except the inspection terms, and you were authorizing the first selectman to address that in his discretion. And
I agree with that. I don't know if those words
Yeah.
say that, but that's
It
what I
doesn't,
agree.
so the word, what I was going to add would be, instead of with the exception of the inspection provision, I would say there instead, leaving open to the first selectman's discretion, the inspection contingency.
And that's what you recall saying.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's certainly what I intended to say. I mean, I know you keep your quibble,
Exactly.
but that's what we're
exactly.
trying
And
to convey.
That's fine. I'm fine with that. Anyone else?
Okay, so we're going to vote on it as modified?
Yeah. All right. Call the
Aye.
question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Thank you. Thanks, Lou. 3.2, February 20th, 2018, regular meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Comments, questions, changes? Anything? Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Carries. Item 4, Human Resources. Mitch, coming up. 4.1 is consider and take possible action on the designation of a bank for the employee HSA accounts. Mitch, just want to give us a little background.
Sure. Thank you very much for hearing me this morning. I've written you each a letter to explain what's going on, but as I think you're very much aware, we've been moving employees to a high deductible health plan with a health savings account attached to it, in other words known as an HSA plan. We have contracts now signed with the Guilford Employee Association and the Guilford Supervisors Association to that effect, and will be effective July 1st of this coming year. As part of that process, we need to designate a bank to establish those HSA accounts. And we put together a subcommittee or a committee of myself, Dennis Johnson, who is here representing the Guilford Supervisor Association, Darlene Minori, representing the Guilford Employee Association. We checked out 4 local banks, bless you, and met with 3 of them, as a matter of fact, that we felt were in most best contention to take over this situation, and we are unanimously recommending Key Bank, which has an office right on the Post Road here in Guilford, as the bank that we would use for the HSA. Let me give you a couple quick reasons and things that separated Key Bank from the other financial institutions that we met with. First of all, first of all, the three we met with were all very qualified and capable of taking on the HSAs. They all were willing to waive virtually all the fees that would be associated with establishing accounts, which was very important to us and to our employees, obviously, to reduce the fees involved in this. Key Bank, however, was willing to waive those fees for the lifetime of the individual's account. We felt that was important. We also had determined that each of the individuals setting up an account would receive a debit card to use with an HSA. And what was unique with Key was the fact that they have a debit card that will limit the use of that card. If you if you spend health savings account monies on items that are not considered to be health savings or health related, you could be subject to a 20% penalty, IRS penalty. The debit card that Key Bank is providing to our employees has some restrictions on it, that it's only allowed to be used for either medical institutions, doctors' offices, or pharmacies. So the chance of using it at some place by mistake or on purpose would be severely lessened by that, and we were very impressed with that. Another thing that separated them was they have no limit on the per-day maximum transactions, so it made it easier for our employees. They don't need to get special permission for a particular bill. The paper statements they were going to have for free if our employees did insist on that. Of course, we're encouraging everyone to use online banking, but there are still some people that will insist on paper statements. And we also found that Key Bank was allowing an investment option. And we found this to be important in our discovery purposes here, because there will be certain people that will use their entire amount of health savings each year. Just the nature of the beast based on individuals or family situation. There'll be other people that'll be allowed to roll over and continue to accrue their savings account year after year. And if they don't have a lot of expenses, they can build up a nice nest egg, if you will, for that day when they may need it, and it could be in retirement. And instead of just having this nest egg or this amount of money build that would be in a regular checking account with minimal interest, Key Bank has an investment portion that allows you to be able to invest a part or all of that money into a higher yielding account. So with that, also the last couple things were just kind of icing on the cake for us. Key Bank also has a very aggressive wellness, a financial wellness program that they will allow our employees to use. And finally, they will also have us have our employees will have the ability to open a separate checking account if they wish. And if so, as a startup, if they do it through direct deposit, would get a $200 bonus to start up their account. So with all those reasons, we felt very comfortable. We've also checked some references and feel comfortable recommending that the town of Guilford enter into an enrollment relationship with Key Bank for the employee HSA accounts. Any questions? And we have representatives from Key Bank. Oh, Darlene is here as well now. And we also have some representatives from Key Bank that are here if there are any questions that I can't answer.
Good morning. Good morning.
I had one question. Has Key Bank managed, or do you manage other HSA accounts?
Oh, yeah. There are HSA accounts. And I checked with, they gave me some references, and I did call the references that not only were happy with their services, but also one thing that concerns me personally is they said it was a very easy transition, a startup that went pretty smoothly, and that's what I'm really looking forward to or hoping on, because that's going to certainly fall on the Human Resources Department to make sure we work with whichever financial institution is chosen to make sure we have a smooth transition for our employees.
Mitch, this matrix that you set up, very helpful.
Thank you.
It really was clear. But I saw that investment option too. Is that self-directed investments, or is it just limited to what the bank is suggesting? I mean,
Kevin, you want to come up and answer that, or it might come up because they won't hear you or see you from back there.
I can't imagine it. And I guess so. I just finished my question even before you start. Thanks. Is I mean, are people putting money at risk of loss by choosing some investment?
I mean, it depends.
Please introduce yourself first.
Yes, so my name is Kevin Olean. I'm the financial advisor at KeyBank in Guilford. It's going to depend on the type of client, the type of investor. So for somebody that's younger and they're looking to grow their account, we've got about a dozen mutual fund families that we can go with. So depending on the client and their comfort level, I mean, you could go into like a conservative mutual fund portfolio, or you could go into a more aggressive mutual fund portfolio. So, obviously,
That's not answering the question. You know, I can appreciate the other choices, but is the potential to lose that funds there?
if they went with the mutual fund option, yes.
And if people understand this is a health savings, so if they have a catastrophic health thing in that worst case scenario,
Nobody else is coming up with that money again.
yeah, I mean, that's a potential to lose your health savings.
So that's person who doesn't want to take on that type of risk.
Just want to make sure that
Yeah.
our employees understand that if they choose this particular option, I understand they don't
Yep.
have to, and I understand conservative, but the potential exists that they could lose their health savings.
Okay. We'll make sure of that. I
Some,
mean,
some or all. I mean, yeah, the town would need like, obviously, both signed off.
Okay.
You making
Yeah.
this decision, you're making this decision on your
That's an
own.
individual decision with their account.
Right.
I'm not sure.
it's not going to come in.
But
That's
like
Well,
when
no,
I-
I don't want them coming back.
That's one thing, you know, your savings or retirement's another thing,
I'm not
health
saying they
savings.
can't do it, and you're right, it's an individual decision, but then you want to fend off the complaint that, oops, nobody told me.
Let me take that one step further. You mentioned earlier that if you use it for a non-medical purpose,
Yep.
you're subject to an IRS 20% penalty.
Potentially, yes.
So if you invest this in one of those options and you lose it, you lose some of that money. Is that money, are you now subject to that 20% provision because you used some of that HSA money in a speculative manner? So you spent it, you've effectively spent it. Unless there's a carve out, an IRS or HHS carve out for this, you need to be, I would think you need to be careful because if you are putting it at risk and you lose money, you are in effect spending the money.
That would not be subject to the IRS penalty.
It's not?
No.
Okay, that's a provision they've written into the option to invest it?
Correct.
Okay.
I think there's going to be a lot for employees to learn in the beginning, but I think ultimately this is a positive step for the town, and I assume within that you'll be doing some evaluations or meeting with the bank again. I mean, just
Oh, sure.
ongoing assessments that things are going the way they're supposed
Well,
to.
I'm sure if our employees have any issues, I'll be the one to hear about them as well as the bank. But yeah, absolutely, Sandy. I mean, that's something
Well, the
that
fact
we're
that it's
going
an established program with
Yeah.
this bank,
It's
I mean, if,
federally
you know, it's,
Yeah.
they're putting, the bank probably putting more at risk, but still, you know, employees have to understand, end runs happen.
Right. Well, and don't forget, I don't believe anyone's going to be taking their initial investment this first year and trying to invest it. I mean, the first year is a real, everybody's learning from it. The idea was that over time, if you put in $4,000 a year
You
and you don't
understand that,
use,
we won't be here, okay? 20 years from now, somebody's sitting there with this pile thinking that their children are going to take advantage of it, or they're at the point of their life when they need it, and it's not there. You know, we're making that decision now.
Okay.
Anything further?
I think that you've addressed, I run our plan for my company, and we hear so many comments about people feeling nickeled and dimed because of all the fees coming out of their
Yeah.
accounts, and you've addressed all of that.
That's nice.
That's the biggest complaint that I hear, so that's really great.
Excellent. Does this board have to act?
Yeah, we have to. You're going to have to sign just an enrollment agreement. It's just a one-page form, right, Andrea?
I'm getting it right.
Okay. And so, we want the board to act to endorse this as the relationship between the town of Guilford and KeyBank.
All right, is there a motion to designate Key Bank as the financial institution for the GSA and GEA employee HSA accounts?
So moved.
And authorize you to.
Right.
And authorize me to sign the document.
Matt, excuse me one second, before you vote on that, can you just make it authorized as the bank for our employees? Because if we add other people, I wouldn't have to come back to you, if we, beyond the GA and GSA?
A bank or the bank?
Well, right now, it'd be the bank. We could also, if there's other.
And for all town employees.
For all town
For all
employees,
town
well, that's my
employees.
point.
Okay.
You know, if we add other employees, we don't have to come back to you and say for this group, for that group, that's all.
Okay, yeah, modified as
Yes.
such.
That's right.
Any further questions or comments? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, refusals? None.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Folks.
I'll take it.
Yeah, thank
I'll
you.
take it afterward.
All right, thank you. Item 5, Rick, 5.1 is discuss and take possible action to contract with All Habitat for weed control at Lake Quanapog, and that is off of the state contract. Rick, just for the viewing audience.
So just a little update on it. So we've been working with All Habitat and with the Friends of Lake Quannapock, the neighbors there, for a couple of years now to improve the quality of the lake. We've had quite an infestation of weeds all over the lake. And so we've been treating the north end by the boat launch, about 10 acres in that area.
Yep.
About 8 acres, we call it the shoal, sort of a shallow area, sort of near the middle of the lake. If you're in the beach looking to the right, it's kind of out in the middle there. It's just very shallow, but it weeds there. And then last year we addressed the south end, the lily pads, and they go all the way to the dam. If you went out with a kayak in August, you can't get to the dam. You can now, but you couldn't. So it's been pretty successful, and it's really improved the quality for swimming. Of course, in the beach area, we bought those benthic blankets, which are like tarps you put down over the weeds. We've been doing that. This will be our 3rd year doing that. It's been very effective, eradicating the weeds, smothering them, and makes it much better for swimmers in the beach. So pretty much the same approach. It's been successful, but you have to kind of keep at it, for a period of 3 or 4 years just to make sure you get all the. We're not getting all the weeds out. You need some for fish and everything, but the invasive ones especially. So it's been successful. We've also worked with Greg Bugby from Connecticut Agricultural Experimental Station. Say that fast 5 times. And Greg's an expert in that stuff, and he's done a survey for us. He's going to do the survey, pre-treatment survey again, and then post-treatment survey, and see the effectiveness of it. So we've been working very closely with him too. So we request that off the state contract, we continue with All Habitat. Get my glasses so I can see I think you have the dollar amounts, $17,484. There's money approved in the budget for it, and we just want to go forward with All Habitat to continue the project.
Rick, you say this has been somewhat of a recurring expenditure.
Yes.
Given the size of that lake, do you foresee that this is going to be an annual event for the foreseeable
I think we
future?
have in our 5-year plan, but not every year. I think we skip a year and then we come back another year after that. But there's a lot of areas we haven't touched
That's
yet.
what I mean.
We're kind of continuing the areas that the Friends of Lake Quannapock have. They've come often to the Parks and Rec Commission meetings to kind of make sure we continue to address it, and so the Commission's been putting it into the budget. Again, it's in either next year or the year after, I forgot, but in our 5-year plan, we have it probably another 2 or 3 times.
All right, this begs the question. You mentioned the Friends of Lake Quannapock. This, while it benefits the town in terms of access to the lake for recreational purposes, does it also enhance the value of the property of the residents around the lake and their access on their sides? Are we doing anything that along the sides that affect their property?
We aren't. In fact, we suggested to them we've given the names of the company where we get the benthic blankets. So if they want to treat the area with those blankets, they can do that. If they wanted to do chemical treatment, they'd have to do application in the wetlands like we do, and they're on their own for that. But we focus more on the more public areas. Again, the South Cove, because nobody lives near there, and the north area by the boat launch and coming in, and in the area just off the beach.
Gotcha.
I assume you've explored any potential grants and that type of thing.
We had a grant from the state the first year. It was for invasive weeds only. The weeds, what we went after last year in the south end was more lily pads, which was not part of part of the state grant. I should mention, I forgot that Choate, they have an endowment and they've committed $2,000 or $2,500 maybe per year to assist with this, and we have tapped into that within the last couple of years. And we could use that to help offset some of this too.
Okay, that's excellent.
And that's because they use that for their crew teams?
They do, yeah.
The chemicals that are used, I presume this may actually come up in the budget presentations, capital budget presentations, so sorry if you've been through this before, but, I mean, what's the process by which they select what chemicals they use, and what are the side effects, for lack of a better word, of what they use?
Well, I'm not the scientist, so I can't give you a great answer on that, but I know that Greg Bugby, who is, he's agreed with whatever they want to put down. All Habitat, they're biologists, scientists, they know what to use. It's been approved by the state, so we have to get their approval for whatever we put in there. There's a permit process, which Kevin McGee did for us last year. All Habitat's going to do it this year. So the permit, they have to list with the state what they're going to put in, how much, the rate and all that, and the state has to approve that. Side effects, I mean, they say technically you can swim in it right away, but we don't. We post it. We post all around the lake that's been put in, so people can choose not to go in. And we're not treating the beach area anyway. I mean, does any of it infiltrate? It's in the water, but there's no restriction on swimming.
When we get those approvals, do those approvals work for the private parties that may or may not want to get these blankets?
The blanket, I think they'd have to go to inland wetlands probably for that. We've got it approved for the beach. And I think
so.
our
Each
approval's good for 5
individual
years.
application would probably require.
Yeah, I think so. In fact, what we suggested to the neighbors, if a bunch of you are going to do it like adjacent to each other, go together so you get one permit, one approval, so you don't have to all go separately.
When you had said permits for chemical application, I didn't know if that included these blankets or not.
No, I think the permit for the state is just for the chemicals. Inland wetlands was for the blankets.
Okay.
Anything further? All right, is there a motion to approve entering into a contract with All Habitat LLC in the amount of $17,484 for the work as described earlier by Rick Maynard?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Any further questions, conversation, discussion? Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None.
All right, well, thank you. Now, see, if we
you.
get the weeds cleared out, we can put an underwater disc golf course. We'll rent out scuba gear and snorkels. I'm not giving up on
You were
that.
doing so well.
Have a good day.
I like a man who can poke fun at himself. Item 6, town engineer Jim, come on up, please. Good morning. How are we? Good. Attaboy. All right, Jim, couple items here. Construction of concrete sidewalk, 6.1.
Yes, we received bids on the 26th, got 5 bids. There were 2 bidders that were tied for the primary part of the bid, which is sidewalks. These William Layden, they bid $9 a square foot, and there's an outfit out in the Waterford, P&W Paving. They also bid $9. This year, because of limited funds, we're going to concentrate just on replacement of defective sidewalks. So based on that, and based on the fact that we have a relationship with Layden, who does the patching, has done an excellent job for the Connecticut Water Company and the Southern Connecticut Gas. It makes sense to me to stay with that rather than somebody we don't have any history with. So I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen award the maintenance contract, bid number 9-1718 to William Layden Construction, again, based on past favorable service. Yeah.
Question? Call the question. Not call the question. Is there a motion to approve award bid 9-1718, construction of concrete sidewalks to the William M. Layden Corporation.
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? Call the question, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusal? None. Motion passes. 6.2.
6.2. Issue came up a couple months ago when we've been recycling waste oil at the transfer station since we've opened it. It's been part of the state's policy for recycling. And for years, it's been a non-issue. We installed a 1,000-gallon tank out there years ago, and periodically we have to have it pumped out when it gets filled. As we approached the time when the tank was full this year, our vendor who takes the oil, very modest cost, Federal Oil Services, they're out of Killingworth, they alerted us to the fact that they weren't going to, Bill Mahler, who's the owner, said, I'm not going to take it unless the tank is tested because we've pulled back away from this kind of service for communities because there have been a number of incidents in the state where the oil that they've collected has been contaminated with PCBs. And I took that for what it was and said, okay, well, we'll have to have it tested, obviously, but how do we know going into this, how do we check if people are coming in something with contaminated waste oil? He says, there's no foolproof method. So I then I talked to folks at DEP. There's Ross Boonell, who is kind of the guru of this part of their oversight. And I was able to get off their website, and I included it with the memo.
You did, thank you for
This PCB contamination waste oil, it could be a real headache for the communities, and it's something that you all have to be aware of. Based on that, and based on the fact that the cost exposure is so high, I look into what other options do we have. We just tell people it can't, because we have to provide for the recycling as part of the state mandate. We do belong to Haz Waste Central in New Haven. It's part of our budgetary situation every year. We go through and send money into them people, and I think it's probably a good time for people to realize that they can get rid of any kind of hazardous material in their households at no charge. It's open on Saturday mornings from May right through October, and we put up these signs on a regular basis. We have one at the transfer station, we have one in town hall, alerting people to that. But most of us don't pay too much attention unless we need it. At least if not like me, anyway. So that is an option for people. Based on that, I contacted Bunnell again. I said, wait a minute, if I read this legislation correctly, if we belong to this regional disposal site, we should be able to just direct our people there rather than continue to provide the service at our transfer station. He hemmed and hawed, of course, and said, well, we don't want people driving. I said, well, yeah, but this is the way the law is. You're going to throw the law at us. I'm going to put it back to you because this is a lot of exposure for the towns. So, in fact, we can direct people to go in there. And, and I've done it for years. You change the oil on your mower or snow blower or something like that. You collect it. You don't take it every time to the place. So I would suggest people do that, do the same thing they've always done, put it in a 5-gallon can, and then some Saturdays convenient for them, take it into New Haven. We cannot, I don't think, expose that. And I unilaterally decided that I wasn't going to take it until we got this thing resolved. But I would like the Board of Selectmen now to vote in favor of just no longer taking waste oil and to discontinue the collection of crankcase oil and antifreeze, which we've also done at the transfer station, and direct all such liquid and recycled materials be delivered to the Hazardous Waste Collection Center.
I've used the hazardous waste. It's very, very easy. As a matter of fact, I've met our town employees. We must volunteer on some of our employee time or something.
On 2 of the Saturdays, we have to provide people to help.
It's very convenient, very easy. It's no big deal.
Right.
They have it down to a science. You're not even allowed to get out of your car type thing. The question I have, though, is how much oil have we collected over the past years to measure the inconvenience that we may or may not be creating?
Well, we don't.
How many times a year have we emptied it?
2 to 3, depends on the year. It's not like it fills up every couple of weeks. And I think it's like I said, most people will do it, they'll collect it in their garage until they decide to get down.
I'll make this motion then. Where we're going.
I just have one other question. I'm in favor of this, but is there going to be any grace period? Because as you said, if people
Oh,
are
they've
not,
already started.
We stopped.
they stop.
We're not taking it.
Is there a way to, besides posting at a town hall and at the transfer station, is there a way to kind of send out a notice to everyone?
It's been on the
You
website.
did it already.
And I'm assuming that we might see something in a newspaper of local circulation about it at some point as well.
Yeah.
Any chance that would happen? I thought you might want to start some controversy.
I don't think this will do it.
And I agree with Jim's assessment. The liability is significant. I've always had some concerns about spills related to people getting rid of that here.
Yeah, it was
And
getting
now-
noticeable, just the site itself. You just wonder about normal spills.
Right. And if those, and then if DEEP is requiring, you to test whether or not there are PCBs in it, that's.
Then they got to give us a test that works.
Yeah.
We can hide behind it.
There are actually 8 different tests you have to go through to make sure it's okay. I mean, it's not expensive, but it's time consuming.
So Jim, is the tank currently empty?
It is.
So our last collection has taken place, it's been emptied, so, and is it, I'm sorry, is it an underground tank?
No, these are tanks we put in, basically concrete vaults below it. We took a half septic tank,
Yep.
took the top off and put it in there so that if there is spillage, we still contain it. We don't, so it's
I
not.
think
it's not
just cleaning up that site is going to be of value.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and it's going to cost us some money again because there is a process you have to go through.
Right, I was gonna say, what?
Compared to what a spill would cost.
Nothing, nowhere near.
So the empty tank will stay there for a while, eventually we'll see a bill for, this is what it's gonna take to remove this tank
Correct. And what we'll have to
at
do
some
is.
point, but there's no urgency.
No, you have to cut it out, you have to clean out the, because you have a lot of sludge that collects there, you can appreciate. Then you have to clean that sludge out, and then clean the surface, then you can get rid of the tank, just as metal, but there is a process.
Fantastic.
Anything
Start
further?
the process.
Anything further? We already have the motion on the table, right? Charlie already made the motion. So good. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? Motion passes. 6.3, discuss and take possible action to extend contract with William Layden Construction for pavement patching and installation of driveway aprons with current pricing. Jim?
Right, we did receive a letter from William Layden as part of the initial quote we had 2 years ago. We did make provisions for if both parties agree, we can extend this up to 3 years. Layden has come back to us with a letter saying they would hold the price again for another year. They've done very well. I would consider that as per the quotation.
Jim and I talked about this a week or two ago,
Yeah.
and he indicated exactly that. Very satisfied with these folks.
Yes.
They're responsive. They get out here when we need them, and they do good work. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Refusals? None. Thank you, Jim.
I don't know if it was decided we weren't going to entertain the request from the Guilford Yacht Club on the.
Yeah, I
no,
think,
there was, okay.
yeah, we'll hold off on that.
All right,
I think the last email was
Friday.
Friday. Yeah.
Yeah, it only came. The information only came in Friday. They are on, but it's up to them. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Item 7, consider and take possible action to set a public hearing date for Tuesday, March 13th, 2018 at 7:30 p.m. at the Green Community Center to obtain public comment and consider enactment of an ordinance on hydraulic fracturing waste prohibitions. This is a follow-up to discussions we've been having for a couple of months now. At this point, the draft that you have in front of you has been reviewed a couple of times by Pam, our in-house Pam Millman, our in-house counsel, and Pete Barrett, our, well, we don't call him outhouse counsel, but he's outside counsel, in-house. I've always wanted to say that. It's just hanging there. It's low-hanging fruit, right?
Very good.
nonetheless, and it was revised to make it more consistent with the way we pass ordinances. In fact, there was, Lou and I had a conversation. Go ahead, you can ask the question right now.
I read through this, and I thought it was very well done, and it addresses the needs and concerns of the people who have spoken before us, and I think for the best interest of the town, all that. My question was, how do we confirm that contractors are in fact complying with this?
And the answer to that is we're going to write it into, Pam, go ahead. It's.
The
bid document.
the bids. So you're
Yes.
talking about bids. So,
Yeah.
so the original form ordinance had a whole section on if we go out to bid, this language they want in the bids. Well, we as a town have a purchasing policy, not an ordinance. So other towns do it differently. Ours is a little more flexible so that the policy can be revised and adopted by the board only. You don't have to go through the whole ordinance process. So the plan is to amend the purchasing policy, which was rewritten in 2012, I believe, and create the amendment and pretty much track what the people who are proposing this ordinance pretty much track those clauses that they had in their ordinance. It just doesn't belong here, it belongs in the policy.
Well, coming out of public hearing, anything could change.
Right, exactly. Is there anything, any other questions, comments?
I just have one. Not being a lawyer, I didn't really understand. The language is in here a couple of times where we take an exception, except as such prohibitions are otherwise preempted by federal and state laws. Where are we going with that?
So,
Come on up. Yeah.
so as a town, towns can't just come up with laws that might defy what's already on the books in the state or federal level. Like a sample of preemption would be laws that deal with guns and all sorts of laws on guns. And, you know, the state and the feds have spoken on those issues. So we can't come up with our own gun laws. So the terminology is the state and the federal laws have preempted our right as a town to create laws. They preempted the whole field of that subject matter. This is interesting because we know that there's lots of environmental laws on oil extraction, gas extraction, both on the federal and on the state level. Some people, you know, some of the discourse among attorneys are to the extent, well, has the federal and the states preempted the towns from even passing these ordinances? I think it's generally felt, you know, in reading some articles and everything, that there are definitely gaps and exceptions to the federal and state laws on certain issues, so that there is an argument that they haven't preempted the field on that. So we're going to venture and create this ordinance, but we're also going to kind of cover ourselves in case some ruling, some case law, something comes out later that says, no, towns aren't allowed to do this. This is, the federal and the states have preempted this field of work.
I see. So it's something
We're covering ourselves.
and we do
just
that
in
in
case.
general. It's not anything specific about this issue.
Correct.
Okay. I was thinking that maybe knowing that the state is planning to address this.
Right.
With
And
some
that's a very good
regulations.
point. And there's a lot of argument back and forth on that. Like, do you wait? Because we know DEEP is instructed by statute to create regulations by a deadline, July 1, 2018. Others who are closer to that seem to indicate that no one believes they're going to make that deadline. So we have enough protective language in our draft ordinance that if they do come out deep with some elaborate, and basically it is felt that they're preempting it, then we'll, you know, we're not going to be in violation because our ordinance had all those carve-outs to protect us from
I
that.
see. So if the state comes up with something which they would then enforce, which would be great because we wouldn't have to do anything,
Correct.
then we're all set. We don't have to do
Correct.
anything
Yeah.
further. Okay. All right. I see.
Anything further?
No.
Is there a motion to set the public hearing date for Tuesday, March 13th, 2018 at 7:30 PM at Green Community Center to obtain public comment and consider enactment of an ordinance on hydraulic fracturing waste prohibitions?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
Second. Any further conversations? None? Call a question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? Thank you. All right. Appointments and resignations. Yeah.
Just can't do all. I know we do the signs all over.
Yeah, we'll run through.
Yeah, we've been through.
Yeah. Appointments and resignations. 8.1, act on the appointment of Stephen Berry to the Guilford Lakes Golf Course Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire September 30th, 2019. Is there a motion?
I got that one.
Second.
Second. Personal, there's a personal spot there. This is a vacancy that's been unfilled since 2015. Having been motion made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, recusals? None. 8.2, act on recommendation to move Paul Scarpa from alternate to regular member on the Standing Fields Committee. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining, recusals? None. Act on recommendation to move Sarah Torf from an alternate to regular member of the Conservation Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022. Motion?
So moved.
Go ahead.
So moved.
Second.
I have just a question on that. We're acting on a recommendation. I'm just wondering who made the recommendation, because what we have in our packet is a little.
I think
it's
this
like a
comes
little
from
Post-it note.
that's probably the Democratic Town Committee.
Okay, all right. It would be good to
Yep.
know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And actually, we recommended her, she just went on as an alternate member, I believe, in the December meeting. Right? So, call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusal? None. 8.4, act on recommendation to move Philip Johnson from an alternate to regular member of the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022. Motion? I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None of the above. Act on recommendation to appoint Claire Dunn to the Land Acquisition Commission as the Parks and Recreation representative to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2019. Motion?
So moved?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Act on recommendation to appoint John Jagelski as an alternate to the Standing Fields Committee as a Parks and Recreation Commission representative. Is there a-
So moved?
So
I'll
moved.
second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. 8.7, act on recommendation to appoint Tara Hunt Melvin to the Parks and Recreation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2019.
So moved.
And this is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Act on recommendation to appoint Steve Copps to the Pension Committee to fill a vacancy for a term to expire November 30th, 2020. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. 8.9, act on recommendation to appoint Scott Gilliston to the Pension Committee to fill a vacancy for a term to expire November 30th, 2021. Is there a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. Act on recommendation to appoint Adam Toolin to the Standing Building Committee to fill a vacancy for a term to expire June 17th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved?
Second.
Sure, second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. 8.11. Act on recommendation to appoint Robert Berger as an alternate to the Shellfish Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2020. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. Act on a recommendation to appoint Scott Edmond as an alternate to the Planning and Zoning Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2019. Motion?
So moved?
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. Act on a recommendation to appoint Lawrence Rooney to the Parks and Recreation Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022. I'd like to make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals? None. Motion carries. 8.14, act on recommendation to appoint Sean Cosgrove to the Planning and Zoning Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022. And I'd like to make that that motion as well.
Second.
One one comment. Sean is the son of Ned Cosgrove, who I had the distinct pleasure of serving on the Board of Finance in the early 1990s. He was a gentleman, and he was committed to his community, served on boards and committees for many, many years, and I see people nodding their head around the table. So, Sean, glad to have you carry on in your father's legacy. So, with that, is there a motion to approve?
Yeah.
No, I mean, is it call the question?
Aye.
Call the question.
Aye.
All opposed, abstained, recusals, none. Sean, thank you. Act on recommendation to appoint Emily Cello to the Conservation Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022.
So moved.
And
Second.
second. Call the question, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, none. Motion carries. Act on recommendation to appoint Patricia Keegan to the Conservation Commission to fill a vacancy for a term to expire February 28th, 2019.
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, none. Motion carries. 8.17, act on recommendation to appoint Reno Migani, Jr. to the Historic District Commission for a term to expire January 31st, 2023. Is there a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals, none. Motion carries. 8.18, act on recommendation to reappoint David Williams to the Inland Wetlands Commission for a term to expire February 28th, 2022.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, seeing none, motion carries. Wow.
That's
Okay.
encouraging that there's this many
Yeah.
committed folks.
It's nice to
Absolutely.
see the building committee because
Right.
we've
Yeah,
had
that's a
a lot
tough
of
one.
openings on that.
Yeah, I was going through the boards and commission meetings. It seems as if February is a very big month for.
Well, there's that lapse where you can't appoint anybody
Right.
around the election
Election
time.
Oh, I see.
Then you get the holidays.
Big
and that's
batch of them
what-
all at once. Yeah, well, that's great.
It is. And again, thank you. It's wonderful to see that many folks stepping up.
And there are more openings.
Yeah, there are more coming.
Yeah.
There are more coming, so we encourage you. Tracy, do we have those, the list posted on the website? So I encourage those in the viewing audience to take a look on the website. If there are items of interest, please self-identify either through the respective town committees or directly to the Board of Selectmen, to the First Selectman's office, and we will entertain those.
And unaffiliated voters.
Unaffiliated, Republicans, Democrats, actually.
Quite a few of these were, in
That's right.
fact. I meant to count, but
Yep,
it
Steve
happened
Berry.
too fast.
Yep, Steve Berry was one of those. He was an unaffiliated voter, and he filled that vacancy on the golf commission. So. All right, item 9, request for use of town property. Before we go into those, is there a motion to add item 9.5, which is for the March for Our Lives Guilford event?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good, thank you. 9.1, act on request from the Guilford Civic Women to use the green September 29th, 2018 for the Harvest Festival.
So moved.
And seconded. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals. Hearing none, motion carries. 9.2, act on request from the Guilford ABC to place a sign on the green advertising its Mo Pleasure concert taking place March 24th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals. 9.3, act on request from Youth and Family Services to display 200 purple flags on the green from May 12th to May 26th, 2018, as part of Day Week to educate parents and youth about healthy choices.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, none. Motion carries. 9.4, act on request from Youth and Family Services to place a sign on the green advertising Medication Take Back Day taking place Saturday, April 7th, 2018. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second. Call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, recusals, hearing none, motion carries. 9.5, let's see here. Okay, and this is a request from March for Our Lives, Guilford, Connecticut, for an event, for a sign this is an event, right?
Use of the green.
Use of the green, for March for Our Lives, March 24th, 2018. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this?
I mean, there's a handwritten note on here that it sounds like it's going to be tight schedule-wise. There's the egg hunt.
Right.
I don't know if there's any way we could push these folks back to, say, 1 o'clock so that they're not quite.
Well, either that or make sure they coordinate between the police department and Park and Rec so that there's going to be a lot of families around.
Just
And which may add to both of them.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be bad, but it's just going to be crowded.
right.
Well,
When is-
they ought to be alerted, the police especially, making notes.
Well, but they've already, just as a little bit of background, Frank Blackwell has been working with the police department on this march, getting advice relative to where would be most appropriate, where we aren't blocking or crossing state streets. They've been in close coordination with them. My recollection is the Easter egg hunt is usually done in about 35 minutes.
Yeah.
But people do know. They come in.
Yeah.
Does it make sense to just make it a little bit later than 12 o'clock? I mean, has it been published already?
I think allowing them to sort it out, knowing, the
Right.
potential problems or issues, would be enough. I mean, they have to work it out for the success of their events, both. Everybody,
So
it's a community.
sounds like the motion is we are approving it based on them negotiating, entering into discussions with Park and Rec and the Police Department over whether or not the most appropriate time is 12 or 1
Safe and
o'clock.
successful. Right.
Well, I have some other questions.
Sure.
Was Mr. Blackwell able to come? I
He's
know
not
we
here
were,
tonight.
we were told that he might be here for questions. And, please make no mistake, this is not about the nature of the event at
Right.
all, but some things on this form seem very vague. And I've not experienced, a lot of these in my brief couple months on this board, but just for those who don't have this in hand, number 7, estimated number of people expected to attend. Hundreds can be expected to attend. Describe security provisions. I am working to the Guilford Police Department. Describe traffic control measures and parking plans. Will speak with police and First Selectman's office. It sounds like it's a work in progress to me.
It is a work in progress, but it is one that I think the police department is fully engaged in. The issue here is getting it approved in time. So
is it would it be normal for us to be expected to approve something like this without seeing the plan where we can see that it's going to be safe and controlled and in the best interest of the town the way it's
Butch,
going
yeah,
on?
please come
Yeah,
up.
how do we deal with that?
So we met with Mr. Blackwell last week, and he is admittedly, this is something new to him. He's never done it before. We gave him some direction on how to go about getting applications and permits to use the green, some suggestions on where he should do what he's doing or what he wants to do. He's mentioned from the beginning, this is peaceful. Everyone is invited. It doesn't matter what your stand is on the event. He wants everybody there to be a peaceful gathering and march. The issue is he's advertising it on social media now, which we're also monitoring. He has about 200 to 300 people that are interacting on social media. We don't know if that's 200 to 300 people are going to show up. He doesn't know if it's going to be 50 people or 1,000 people. We just don't know. We had a similar march last year with the tax march. Same thing. Didn't know. And these are the kind of things that once it starts getting traction, it could be a larger number. Or there are other events going on that day throughout the country. So, that may draw people away from it. So those are the things that we're looking at and going to try and monitor social media to see what it looks like for people here. The conversation we've had with him and also would like to have with the board is that certainly now brings an issue of staffing for the police department, staffing that event to ensure the safety of the people who are involved in the march, the people that are using downtown, the traffic, the pedestrians, the businesses, things like that. Some of the things that immediately pop up is if they're going to march from the green to wherever, perhaps down to the docks and back, making sure that any road crosses are happening safely for both the people using the roadway and the marchers. There's always a potential for counter marchers or protesters or people who are against whatever it is that the people in the march maybe have signs or may be interested in. So those are things that we are again taking into consideration and are going to have to act on, which means we are going to have extra staff on for that event with a cost to the department to
Yeah.
to cover that, for all the right reasons. We want to make sure that this, everybody is adequately and safely covered on this. Some of the suggestions we had with him, and he was very open when we met with him. Again, admittedly, he's never done something like this before. One of the things is, and as we talk to him, continuing, who are the volunteers that are helping him with this, and how are they identified so the police department knows who they are? I don't know if there's going to be T-shirts or hats or pins or something, so we know who somebody isn't. We know who Mr. Blackwell is, but who else is helping him with this, so that if there's an issue, we can go right to them. The chief is also. And he apologized for not being here. We're kind of
There's been a busy
divide and conquer here today. So, and I've been meeting with Mr. Blackwell along with Lieutenant Bernier, so I have some background on it. Besides the volunteers, the chief, he's also applied, Mr. Blackwell's applied to the chief and to the board for a noise control variance. He wants to have a band and some speakers on the green, as well as the application for the green. Common sense stuff with that we talked about was, inappropriate or foul language isn't allowed. We wouldn't, try and keep that to a minimum. Also, that there's a point of contact. It's probably going to be him, but we identify points of contact for the police. So if it does look like it's going to start going in a way that we don't want it to go, that's the person we can contact to shut it down. Other things for consideration, it's not a police consideration, but it can be, is, what are they using for facilities for bathroom breaks, garbage pickup, things like that. Alcohol's a concern for us, obviously those come in with the application, but those are the things that we'd be looking out for, and in conversations we've had with him. So he's putting that out on social media, the things that can and can't be done. The times, I know you mentioned on one of the applications some of the times and the numbers. They vary between the noise ordinance and the application for the green. And that's something we're going to have to talk to him too, because he wants the green, I guess, from noon, but talks about the noise ordinance from, it's hard to read what he wrote here. I don't know if it says 12:30 or 13:30, which would be 12:30 or 1:30 in the afternoon to 6. So I was hoping he was going to be here today, because he could shed some light on that. But the noise ordinance, we would just like to, confirm what those times are. And for you guys to make that, for your review. The other thing was inform the businesses on the green. For a number of reasons. Because people down there there may be overflow they may have to put more people on, things like that. So, particularly people are going to be using those businesses to get food and drink and those kinds of things. I think that's about it right now. The egg hunt. What time does the egg hunt start?
It's usually 10 o'clock.
10 to 12.
To address some of Susan's concerns, those are very real, and the normal process when something like this evolves very quickly is to approve it with the understanding that the first selectman's office is coordinated with the police, Park and Rec, whoever else, the merchants and everything. I mean, I've watched 2 or 3 of these things all the way to American Idol thing evolve very, very quickly, and we really do have to put our confidence, as long as this communication that we see already is happening, and then Matt, you're just going to have to control it. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So I have no problem moving something like this forward, with the understanding that we are managing it, and it has to have some parameters. I mean, it can't just because you don't know. I mean, half the stakes show up.
Sure.
And I will confirm the Deputy Chief's contention about Mr. Blackwell. He has been nothing if not honest about the fact that he has no clue how to do this.
Well, that's what's wonderful.
And he said, I need your help. Right. And both Karen and Tracy in the Selectman's office, as well as Lieutenant Bernier and obviously the Deputy Chief, have
and that's why we have to be involved early, so that other people don't grab control from Mr. I mean, he may have all the perfect intentions and everything, but things happen. And that's why we have to make sure that we're watching.
He is looking he's reached out to the high schools. He's looking for some support from the high schools, particularly in light of what happened in Florida. So I don't know, he's looking at Branford, North Branford, Madison. So, we may have some, groups from the high schools coming down as well. We discussed with him, he wants to do a march, and just like with the tax march, we do the sidewalks and back and forth to the harbor. It worked out great. There was no traffic shutdown other than people crossing at the crosswalks, which limits the chance of something bad happening. So hopefully, as we move forward, it's coming very quickly. But as we move forward, all these things we're trying to address those with him.
And we appreciate the flexibility you guys have shown with him as well. So. Okay.
I have confidence. I mean, I made a motion that, we can rein it.
That's it. And it's been seconded. Good. Thank you.
Do I present this to the board now, or?
Absolutely.
So there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Let's vote on the original motion, which is the use of the green. You moved it, and it's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstained, recusals. Do we have to vote on the application for the variance for the noise control? All right. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion, the variances, but it's 6 o'clock.
12:30 to 6 is what's actually on this.
All right, I mean, it's other places at 10 o'clock at night. But 6 is,
That's fine.
I'll move that,
Second.
knowing that it might adjust.
No, this just came from the
Oh,
chief,
okay.
just
Okay.
the deputy chief. I'll take a look at it. It's to accommodate the live band and speakers. And it just, for the record, we did not require any of this for the song event in town. Right? All right, so is there a motion to approve the variance for the noise control? A second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. I'll sign that in a minute, all right? Item 10, correspondence, anybody? No? Committee reports, I think we've agreed, after the budget gets put to bed, we'll address that issue. Old business, Sandy? You had
Yes,
something?
I just wanted to report that a couple of meetings ago, this board approved a grant from Connecticut Department of Housing to continue the town's efforts in providing affordable housing for our citizens. I'm the head of the committee, Housing for Economic Development Plan, and we are moving forward with asking for professional companies to come forward to explore property that the town owns for potential affordable housing development. And I'm just happy to report that we have 13 applications that I will be reviewing this afternoon with George Kroll and another member of our committee, Mary Jo Kessner. And then our full committee meets this coming Thursday, March 8th at 5 o'clock in this room. It's an open meeting if anybody wants to come. And I don't know if we'll be prepared to recommend the firm to go forward on the 8th, but we're trying to move ahead on this quickly, but carefully. Thank you.
Good. That's a good report. Anything else under old business? No? New business? I have two items, the first of which is in Mary Jane and I have been working in conjunction with some members of the Board of Finance related to an investment policy for our deposits on hand, our cash deposits. A lot of this came out of some discussions while I was actually on the Board of Finance, and there's been some questions as to which we'll probably hear over the next couple of days during the budget presentation and the Board of Finance deliberations about how do we improve or how do we increase the amount that we're getting for interest income on our accounts. As you probably recall, we doubled it for this year. We went from 40 to 80 in projection, and there's some discussion related to using other investment vehicles, which, are 3-month T-bills. The challenge is clearly one: how much money can we put on the sidelines, and take out of the system? We're somewhat limited when we're spending $7 million a month, and we're taking in half the tax receipts. So assume 45 million by the end of July, more than likely the middle of August. By the time those come in, you've already spent almost 10 million, and then you can't really put a bunch into into 3-month T-bills at that point, because you got another 21 million to spend between now and then. So anyway, we have, Mary Jane and I have been talking about this, we're looking at the risk parameters that are allowed by the state.
That's what I was going to say. I mean,
there are
I think
some-
this is a great idea, and it's come up from various suggestions from various people, but that's the thing we have to also be mindful of. We might say, oh, we could make 10% on this, but there are certain limitations with public money that we can't go in certain directions.
Right.
Where are you going to make 10%?
I don't know. I mean, no, I'm not.
There was a community in California many years ago that
Yeah.
decided
No.
derivatives were a good thing to invest their
Yes.
money in. Remember that? So,
Who's
but,
on the committee, Matt?
It's not a
Oh,
formal
okay,
committee.
just
This is
informal,
just
okay.
Mary Jane's been pulling together the information, and we are prepared to have some discussions with the Board of Finance about that over the next couple of days. So as we anticipate that.
So the liquidity of the money is just is another
That's
issue
the
that's
key.
gotten
Yeah.
lost, I think, in some of the.
Some of the discussions,
It's not to
absolutely.
say we shouldn't try, obviously,
Right.
but
Exactly.
interesting.
Also, I just want to, new business, I want to commend the police and fire department for their handling of an incident on Saturday down at the Guilford Yacht Club. Unfortunately, a young man lost his life in I don't know if you really want to call it a boating accident, but it happened to be on the water. I understand it was a work barge. A training session was taking place. For whatever reason, the barge tipped and someone got pinned underneath. I also want to thank Lou. I was actually on my way to New York City to attend the Kelly Duggan Foundation annual fundraiser, and Lou went down and had a presence down here, but quickly found out that people like us are superfluous in those kind of situations because police and fire had it well in hand. So
The
compliments.
response was impressive.
Yeah, compliments to both organizations. So, anything else on the new business? No. Public forum. Anybody want to address public forum? If none, discuss and take possible action on potential donation of sick time for an employee. Executive session may be required. Is there a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Yeah. Yep. On a motion made by Sandy, seconded by Sue, we've come out of executive session for one item, that is to take action on potential donation of sick time for an employee. Is there a motion to grant the ability for that employee to take advantage of additional sick leave donated from other employees? As discussed, and where the name is being redacted for obvious purposes, obvious reasons.
So moved.
Second.
I'll second that, and just point out that it's pursuant to an established town policy that this vote comes to this board, and so that's why we're acting on it.
All right, good. Anything further? Call the question. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Recusals? None? Public forum? Hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.